Greetings! We are a group of students from Academic Communication Skills class of Section 56. In this video, we are going to present on our academic writing research paper on human rights issues of child marriage. Before we proceed, we would like to introduce our team members. Presenting this group are Julia Ameera, Nurfarrahhin, and lastly, Muhammad Najib. Our first presenter, Nurfarrahhin, will give some introduction regarding our topic.
The introduction. Child marriage is a marriage that occurs all over the world involving children under the age of 18 years old. One of the myths of child marriage is it is a family affair, so it does not affect the world. This misunderstanding leads to the persistence of child marriage. It is predominantly found in South Asia with 31 million cases, Sub-Saharan Africa with 14 million cases, Latin America and the Caribbean with 6.6 million cases of child marriage. In Asia, the highest marriage rate for children is in Bangladesh, while the highest child marriage rate for both boys and girls are in Nepal. Some of us are still not conscious of the consequence of child marriage, considering all the attention paid to child marriage globally. So, this paper will address why child marriage is a human rights issue and how to tackle it. Next, the definition. So, what is child marriage? Child is identified as a person below the age of 18 under the Child Act 2001, while marriage is described as a relationship that happens between two individuals with whom they will reside together and is lawfully accepted, or the formal ceremony. So, basically, the term child marriage is a marriage that involves children, either a boy or a girl under the age of 18, and applies to both formal and informal marriage, in which child will reside with a partner as if they were married. Moving on to the statistic of child marriage. At a global level, the percentage of married girls and girls at risk of child marriage is growing, as per the previous study carried out by the UN. As mentioned in the article by IWHC in 2018, it shows that in developing countries, 1 out of 3 girls are married before the age of 18 and 1 out of 9 are married before 15 years old. It also shows that more than 140 million underage girls will be married over the next decade if the existing rate persists, and nearly 400 million women between 20 to 49 years of age are married globally before the age of 80. In the article written by the UNICEF in 2020, that 150 million boys and men were married before the age of 18 internationally. So, besides girls, boys also have to endure a breach of human rights that will limit their childhood due to the early marriage, even though that child grooms are less common than child brides.
Next, Muhammad Najib will present on the factors and reasons behind the issues of child marriage.
The main factors that necessitated child marriages. Poverty is recognized as a driver of early marriage. The rate of child marriage has been correlated to poor household economic conditions, and a higher incidence of child marriage is evident in poverty-stricken areas. In fact, child marriage rates are highest in countries that are the poorest in the world. The practice is common among economically disadvantaged groups because they have fewer choices due to a lack of opportunities and resources. Adolescent girls in rural areas are often disproportionately affected by child marriage, and child marriage is more common in rural areas in least developing countries. Young girls in rural areas are more likely to marry before reaching the age of 15 compared to their urban counterparts. The reason for this is that the rural areas are often underdeveloped and culture norms and traditions are more prevalent. The second critical factor is the gender discrimination that is deeply rooted in many societies. Where patriarchal norms prevail, women are considered the property of their fathers and husbands and have no freedom or right to choose whom or when to marry. Gender discrimination thus shapes the social expectations that encourage the practice of child marriage. In places where child marriage is prevalent, many parents and teachers believe that the girls must inevitably marry to become housewives, good wives, and mothers. Girls may be expected to marry and have children even in early adolescence. Girls who are sexually active or become pregnant before marriage are considered ruined, frowned upon, and unsuitable for marriage in some cultures. As a result, this family marry off their young daughters as early as possible for preserving their virginity, maximizing their childbearing years, and shaping them into becoming subservient. The key reasons that made child marriages to persist. First, cultural norms and tradition were regarded as the reason that made child marriages persist in impoverished countries to this day. In some communities, when girls start to menstruate, they become women in the eyes of the community. Marriage is therefore the next steps toward giving a girl her status as a wife and mother. Child marriages happen in many countries around the world simply because at its core, it had existed for thousands of generations to a point that it had been embedded into the culture where it often goes unquestioned in the present day. For example, child marriages in Ethiopia are deeply rooted in traditions of Orthodox Christian communities such those in the regional states of Amhara, even though the Church of the Christian Orthodox pretty much opposes the practice. However, when we look into the context of the Islamic communities, there is debate regarding the age of maturity for girls, though a lot of Muslim and Islamic scholars agree universally that the age of consent is 18. Early child marriage is often justified via religious injunction, although a study by ICRW in 2007 found that no religion was associated with such practice, further proves that targeting a specific religion is not the ideal way of tackling child marriages. Another reason behind the persistence of child marriages was due to the ineffective laws and policies implemented by the government. Governments need to play a role in establishing a law that is coherent and clear, which also provides additional and adequate protection that can guarantee parental consent or other forms of exception, by no means be able to force girls into early marriage. Even though child marriage is prohibited by national law in many countries, there is still a lot of girls who are still subjected to marry before the legal age under the condition that their parents or judicial bodies give their consent. All things considered, various countries around the world still do not effectively protect girls legally against child marriage, but also that legal forms are inadequate enough to cease the practice, as many girls are still subjected to marry illegally in countries where legal protection are established. An example of an exception is where the minimum age of marriage is already set at 18 in law, but marriage below 18 is allowed if the parents approve. In some countries, people also avoid legally registering the birth of their daughters in order to ensure that they can arrange marriages for them at a young age. While protecting girls through law enactment is the morally right thing to do, extra interventions are required to completely abolish child marriages.
Our last presenter, Julia Ameera, will present on the effects and solutions of the issues of child marriage. The effects of child marriage. The first effect is physical and psychological effect. Physically, child bride would often experience poor sexual and reproductive health. This is because they are usually exposed to a higher risk of transmitted disease like HPV or HIV due to unprotected intercourse with their husband in pursuit of proving their fertility apart from the lack of knowledge regarding safe sex. Furthermore, early child labor would also put their reproductive health at risk. This is due to them being physically immature and lack of medical care. Thus, pushing them into early childbearing would cause complications during pregnancy and delivery. It might also lead to mortality of either the mother or the infant, or maybe both. Study shows that complications of pregnancy and childbirth are the second leading causes of death among adults and girls ages from 15 to 19 years old, with nearly 70,000 dying each year. Psychologically, child marriage would often cause the child to experience mental vulnerability, which will lead to trauma, anxiety, and also depression. Research has shown that girls who are married early experience higher rates of depression and anxiety due to isolation and trauma. This resulting in higher level of self-harm and suicide among the child brides. The second effect of child marriage is the child's basic human right is taken away. First, child marriage takes away the child's basic right to have a voice. This leads to the child incapable of having a choice or a say, especially when it comes to decision making. Thus, this makes them vulnerable under the control of their husbands and in-laws. Second, child marriage takes away a child's right to have education. Most of the children who enters early marriage were not given the choice of continuing their education. This caused them to have lack of knowledge, skills, and also social support. Hence, this will create a barrier for them to have a good career in future. It would also limit their access to information regarding health and wellness for them and their future children. Third, child marriage takes away the child's right to have protection. Usually, girls are married off by their family to protect them from violence and sexual harassment. However, once they are married, their safety will not be guaranteed due to them being under the control of their husbands. Their lack of voice will also cause them to be vulnerable under the abuse of their partner. Research shows that girls who are married before the age of 18 have a higher risk of experiencing intimate partner violence than those who don't. Solutions to child marriage. The first solution is educating and empowering girls. First, the girls need to be informed about their basic human rights, and they need to be educated on reproductive health and the importance of family planning. Second, we need to enhance their access to a higher level of education by providing incentives as support for them to enroll and remain in school, which can help in delaying marriage. Educate them on basic skills like literacy and numeracy, which can help them in their future endeavors. Lastly, provide them with solid social support to build their confidence, which can help in alleviating social isolation. Thus, this enables them to advocate themselves into making better choices than to enter an early marriage. The next solution is mobilizing the community and enforcing supportive policies. Firstly, the communities need to be educated directly because that would create an effective way to change their behavior and stereotypical gender norms. Next, provide economic support to families with low household income, since most of the families married off their child to reduce financial burdens. Lastly, enforcing legislation to prohibit the practice of child marriage and also establish a legal minimum age for marriage. Awareness among the community leaders can be made through the implementation of these laws, which can help in protecting the girls' rights and freedom to voice out their decisions.
Conclusion. To sum up, child marriages have become a massive impact to the development of young girls, in which this paper will highlight the underlying human rights issues of this practice and some of the solutions in handling it. Child marriage is a violation of human rights and a form of abuse, especially towards the vulnerable children who were forced into this practice. The effects of child marriages are beyond that of an individual. It affects significantly the community, culture, and economy of a nation. Thus, a full prohibition of this practice is quintessential in order to drive the government to rightly address the issues that come with it and implement applicable policies. Last but not the least, put a special emphasis on education, because education will not only greatly help in changing the minds of policymakers and general public, but also to allow a substantial alteration of removing the patriarchal views and gender discrimination towards young girls, as these are the bedrock to why child marriages ever happen in the first place.
That is all from us. We hope that this video has been informative and eye-opening for you. Thank you for watching and have a good day.